What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS. Have you ever wondered, can you communicate directly with spirit guides, teachers, or non-physical consciousness, or even our higher selves? What would they tell us? My name is Kevin Moore, and since 2015, I started to practice a form of communication which is termed channeling. I have been interviewing experts on my talk show to find out, does life continue after we die? And can we communicate with those that have crossed over? With each expert I spoke to, they all had different ideas. Is there knowledge from the past which could be shared with the present moment? So I thought, why not just speak to the non-physical world directly through channelers around the world? And that's what I set out to do. They call us channelers will take the viewers on a journey into the phenomena known as channeling. And my main goal with this docuseries is to bring a new understanding and awareness to channeling by looking within ourselves and asking, is it truly possible that we can all use this innate ability?
Hi, I'm Desjanee, Threat, Intuitive Channeler, and Seer. I'm a representative of the Divine Council, which is the Council of Gods, Goddesses, and Deities, an Atlantean Starseed, Lightworker, Mystick, and Earth Angel. I'm here to raise Earth's vibration, uplift humanity, help people tap back into their magic and the magic within the universe.
Well, Desjanee Threat, it's a pleasure to have you on, and I know we've got so many things to talk about, and we're going to get through a lot of them. So you're a channeler. Your main platform is TikTok, and you've had great success there, so congratulations.
Yeah, the gods, goddesses, and deities.
You don't give readings as a one-to-one or sessions. You're more of a sort of mass channeler where you're, giving inspirational energy updates to people. We will get more into what you do as we get into this interview as well. You channel the different gods, goddesses, deities, the Galactic Federation, archangels, ancestors, mythical creatures, spirit guides, and much more. So just tell us more on what you do.
So, being an intuitive, I am psychic, and my main focus is collective energy, and being a channeler, we pick up on collective energy. As a seer, it ties into the energy of the world, like astrology, all that correlates. And not being open for psychic readings is kind of because I'm not meant to be. It's really not easy though, because people reach out to me and I like reading people and it's fun because I like giving people insights into themselves. my personal philosophy when it comes to being a spiritual influencer, I consider myself a budding spiritual influencer, is literally helping people reawaken, tap into their magic. So let's say if I decide to open up for readings and I'm doing 30-minute or an hour-long reading compared to recording a video where I can reach more people collectively, it's not the best use of my time. It's like I'd rather focus on that collective energy because it's a collective push right now, which many people are waking up. Many people are tapping into their gifts and abilities, connection to gods, goddesses, and deities, their cultures that have been taken away from them. Collectively, Earth and humanity is shifting and people are realizing how magical they are. So that collective push, that collective energy is my focus. So how much of that I would love to individually read people all the time, finding balance until I'm fully and solely a spiritual influencer. Writing books is mainly being a divine creative is my main way of being able to utilize my gifts. Because many of us are divinely inspired. You hear the words muses like in artistic ways. It's divine inspiration. So I plan to be a best-selling author, creating TV shows, movies, and books, building upon that because so many people get signs from the things they consume, and media is a part of everyday life. Even this interview is media, you know?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely it is. That's so interesting. So what group are you connecting with mainly? For example, that told you not to do the readings, because I think you were told that wasn't going to be part of your path.
So my main ruling body and the main source that I can communicate the most to is the Divine Council, which is the Council of Gods, Goddesses, and Deities. Also my ancestors. So when I first started my spiritual journey, my ancestral awakening was the first step until everything else unlocked and I realized everything. And they both gave me the same message. And it's basically like, it wouldn't be the best option for you. Because I feel like so many people go towards the reading route or being a reader, which is amazing. Nothing wrong with that. But there's so many other things you can be doing and utilizing your gifts about too. And I think that so many people are so focused on just being a reader. And I'm like, my spiritual team kind of pushed me the opposite way right away. So
No, that's a game changer. It definitely is. You have a master's?
I do.
And you're going to take you're going to do your PhD at some point.
Ideally, I will be starting in 2023, no later than 2024. And I specifically want to focus my PhD on history. I want to focus on ancient history, ancient civilizations, colonizations. You know, back in ancient times, magic, what we deemed to be myths, was more prominent. And there was different connections to gods, goddesses, and deities. And somewhere around that, in this path until we are here, it became more so of myths. People got colonized, disconnection to who they are. And if you go back to different cultural practices, magic is tied to them. I'm African American, a descendant of slaves. You think about colonization and how it happened when you think about veneration or channeling, which are practices. Like being a channeler is a practice to many cultures, not just African cultures. You have indigenous, you have pagan, you have Celtic, all these things that were all also colonized in some way, shape, or form. So that's where I want to focus on. Ancient civilizations, magic, connections to God, goddesses, and deities, how colonization has taken people away from their practices. And when people find themselves like me, you get called a demonizer, or you get told these negative things. And I'm like, spirituality is beautiful. And I don't like the idea of elitism. So people should be able to be themselves and have their practices and realize that it's beautiful to be individual and be a part of a collective, and that there's intentionality of why they took away our magic. There's a lot of historical examples about that.
Oh, absolutely. Now, I think it's fascinating, and it's also amazing that you're going to be doing your PhD. Hats off to you, really. The idea of doing my master's really put me off, but for some reason, you know, if I was to do a PhD one day, which I don't think I'm going to be, right, it just seems more appealing because you can choose really, I mean, yes, you can choose on a master's, but it's really fine-tuned in a PhD as well. So that's a lot of work you've done on yourself as well, so congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah.
When it comes to my PhD, I've always been at a place where I knew I wanted to be a doctor. Number one, I think my name itself will be a great anti-hero name because I'm a nerd. Like, I'm a big spiritual nerd, like Dr. Threat. You think about that. That sounds really cool. That's my actual last name.
Yeah, I know. And what a name, right? I was going to ask you that. I was like, is that her stage name too? Because some people do, right? Mm-hmm. But that's your real name. That's so cool.
Yeah. So I'm excited for it. And since I know I'm in the right direction of what I want to study, and it aligns with my spiritual side, except it's practical with the spiritual. Because a lot of us are getting this push because there's voids and blank and dark periods of history we don't know about. But when you channel, a lot of us get divine inspiration and get knowledge, especially if you tap into past lives and all this information. So it all connects. And I want to bring that practical side to the spiritual and have that balance in there.
Absolutely. So where do we begin? I think let's just go back a bit here as well. I think you've always subconsciously been a channeler. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
So how far back can you recall that you just knew that there was not something different about you? Because I think we've all got the ability, but you were open in a sense.
So my whole life, I've always liked magic. I loved mythology. That's what I was always drawn to. So like I grew up watching shows like the Supernatural, Charmed, anything witchy, I was there. That's what I love. I love the craft. Those are like Halloween Town type of movies. That was like my soul's calling out to me before I realized who I was. The earliest encounter for me would be in 2015. And I didn't even realize I channeled until I started my spiritual journey in 2018. And I've been reflecting and healing since then. In 2015, my brother passed away, and he passed away in February. And in April, I went to a concert, and I'm from California. So I was driving back from Oakland to Fresno, and it was like a 3-hour drive at night. I remember getting gas closer to Oakland, and I don't remember driving home. And what happened was I got off on my exit. Again, this is not like one freeway straight away either. It's like several freeways. And I got off my exit, and I remember waking up and seeing my brother to the side of me. And then he like told me intuitively or like downloaded, it's like, you're welcome. And I just saw his whole body like as an aberration. And I was like, I don't remember getting here. So that was my earliest encounter back in 2015, of April 2015, of realizing I was a channeler. And then now that I'm on my spiritual journey and developing my gifts, I realized like, oh, that's why that happened.
Yeah, and if you go even, we'll come back to that because that's really important when you're talking about that. And if you go further back as well, could you go further back than that?
Yes. So I would say the reason why I call myself an intuitive channeler and seer is because my intuition is my major gift. And throughout my life, my intuition has, I would say, literally saved my life. There was one time when I was younger, that I remember when I was a freshman in high school. So this was back in like 2018-ish. And we were going to go to a party, and my intuition was like, don't go. And I was like, okay. So I told my aunt, because my aunt and I are close in age. She's like 7 years older than me. And that party where I decided not to go, my intuition like gave me that big force of not going, literally saved my life, because somebody got shot. And I would say maybe 30 minutes to an hour after I said I don't want to go. And I actually knew who the person was because over the summer we did something like with my family and they knew them. So my intuition and my channeler abilities like typically saved me in many different ways.
Well,
before I realized.
Exactly. How many times do we hear that voice just like you did in that situation, but we don't listen? How comes you were so trusting of it in a sense? You just knew that to be the right thing to do.
I have no idea. So when it comes to being an intuitive, I have to utilize discernment a lot. But growing up, I didn't really know that. So it was just like the sense of comfort that came with it. And that's one of the biggest things I tell people when you're intuitive and you're picking up things. If there's this huge push of comfort and you feel like it's just like something trying to save you or prevent something, you usually follow it. It doesn't have to be like this negative force. Sometimes people have to discern between intuition and fear. And yeah, there's other things growing up too that just helped me a lot because I've always been psychic. I've always known I was psychic. It's just that personally I was raised Christian and I didn't even know there were spiritual gifts within Christianity.
It's not talked about, is it? It's not really talked about.
It depends on the denomination. So if you don't go to a church or a denomination that talks about spiritual gifts, you wouldn't know. And if you don't take the time to read your Bible yourself, you don't know. So towards 2018, the beginning of 2018, 2017-ish is when I decided to read the Bible for myself. So I was able to pick up on the spiritual gifts. Like my favorite book is Escalades, Elations or something like that. I don't remember how to pronounce it, but that book is short, but it talks about spiritual gifts a lot. So does 1 Corinthians and stuff. So it's like that makes me question things too. I'm like, why would you not speak about such a prominent part? And you know, Jesus did miracles and all these things. And I'm like, so confused. And my gifts are genetic. So I'm like, if you know we have genetic gifts, you need to be communicating the gifts, because it would make some people question a lot of things like I did.
And is that sort of from your mum's side?
From my mom's side, yeah. So mother's side, I have my gifts and abilities. So I have the fortune of having a mother who's never been like closed off from that. It's like the most positive thing I personally have ever had from my mom is her willingness to always be open and honest and communicate. She never made me feel like I was crazy when it comes to my spiritual practices. Like my number one thing that I am grateful for, because it happens so much when people talk about magic or spiritual gifts or psychic abilities, their parents don't support them. My mom has never been like that.
God bless her for doing that, right? Absolutely. Because that's helped you on your path right now, most definitely. But your grandparents, they were very religious as well, I believe.
They still are very religious.
They still are, yeah. Which is fine, which is absolutely fine, because that's their happy space, and no one would take that away from them. That's exactly where they need to be, just like it's where you need to be.
That's my philosophy for myself in my life, because we break apart, we change, we grow, we adapt. So I've been healing, obviously, because I have religious trauma and certain things that have happened. And my perspective is that there's truth in most religion. And I feel like people should be able to utilize their truths. And when they find things and they go towards things, it's beautiful. But it's like not forcing it and letting it naturally flow. And my grandparents are still very religious. I think they know that I'm developed my gifts, because I'm pretty sure my aunts and them told them. But at the same time, they never asked. So whenever they ask, I'm going to be true, because I don't have time for that.
Of course.
And it's my life.
Absolutely. Life's too short, right? And let's just go forward then, again, back to 2015. So your brother was murdered, and when he came to see you in that, I'll say use the word apparition, but in that form, right? Was that soon after the murder?
So when that happened, it was 2 months, because he passed away in February, and that incident happened back in April. But the problem with being psychic is you ask for things and sometimes things happen, or they naturally happen. So the night my brother was murdered, I actually woke up gasping for air. And I was like, why did I wake up gasping for air? That's not something I normally do. So I ended up going somewhere. Like 15 minutes later, I got a phone call saying my brother was murdered. And I was like, that was weird. And then, so when I drove to the murder spots, I stayed in my hometown for undergrad. I remember going around there, and I was like, man, I really wish I knew what happened, because it's an unsolved murder. You get what you asked for. As a seer, I had the ability to experience certain things. And when I said those words, I gave myself permission, apparently, to experience his murder. So in that following night, I had a dream, and I got to experience everything that happened, and I felt it on such an intense level. And I was like, oh, interesting. So I'm having that dream, and I wrote it down, and I was like, this is just interesting to have. At the time, I mean, I wasn't developing my gifts. They were just natural. So I was like, And all this connectivity of all the things I experienced when it comes to my brother all happened after I was like reflecting on it now, right, in like the last few years.
And I guess there were people involved in that are still out there now, living with what they've done, but maybe you got to sense that they're out there, that there's more than one, maybe.
It's most definitely more than one. And since I can communicate to my brother, because being a channeler is a form of being a medium, so I have mediumship abilities. My brother and I are dead because they're both gone, communicate to me all the time. So I have like this interesting perspective when it comes to death and the other side. And, it's just a transition. It's a period. And, everyone has to go through it. I don't think people should have such a negative association or connotation when it comes to death.
No, we'll get, because that's what one of your books is going to be based on, which we'll get into as well. Absolutely not. Death is nothing to fear, I feel, and it's just a natural process. It's the word that we've called the transition period, isn't it? But I think we're going back to life, to be honest with you, in a sense, back to a truer nature of existence, more than this extreme experience of stressful experience of down here sometimes, right? Which we all chose to be here. I'm sure you would agree.
I agree, but sometimes I question why. I'm like, why did I decide to sign up for the things I signed up for? It makes no sense. Like, no.
Why do
And
you
the
think?
problem is,
Why do you think though? I mean, there must have been some answer that's come back for you.
100%. I've questioned a lot of whys and like who I was in alignment of that through healing and like awakening. And I say from the past like year or so, I've been going through a dark night of the soul. And that's like the really intense period where you're healing. And that's when the whys really come up because you have to do that shadow work, get to know your dark and understand why you chose to be a light during this time. It's so uncomfortable. It's such a huge push. And the reasoning behind it is a lot of us are incarnating now as Earth and humanity. It is shifting. The Earth is cleansing itself. There's all these things when it comes to human rights and all these things happening that people have from different cultures, by the way, are giving you their stories and they like prophecies that they have related to this. And I'm like, this is deep and it correlates because my soul wanted to be here and be a part of that. And knowing what my purpose is now and diving into that and like reawakening myself, it's like I get why my soul incarnated here and I love what I'm doing and people I plan to reach and I plan to reach millions, be a best-selling author and have TV shows and movies and have my own company where it focuses on the magical, the mythical, the supernatural, the cosmic, which I associate with like extraterrestrials, the Galactic Federation. So I see the why, but the experiences that come with the why, I'm not pro. I don't like them. And the sad thing, well, what I would say and define as sad is most of the time people that are meant to be lights or healers or people here to really do divine spiritual work, we go through the most. It's like our light attracts things even before we realize who we are.
I think that's true. Yeah, even before we realize who we are. Yeah. And whether those lessons are predestined or they, as you say, just like a flight of the light, do you know what I mean? Yeah, you're gonna, regardless, you're still gonna go through them. So I guess what you're saying is don't be too hard on yourself, that if you're finding it difficult, you know, you are, this is just what you're supposed to be going through. I mean, not everyone's gonna have that, and maybe they've not come for that.
So I would say we are on journeys. It could be a healing journey, a spiritual journey, a life journey. I consider myself being on like all three. So we're journeying into life in this incarnation. So life itself has cycles. There's ups and there's downs, there's darks and there's brights, there's highs, there's lows, there's all type of things. And when you're on a journey, you know, you have to know what cycle you're in. You also have to be aware of this. And a lot of the times when you go through those hard periods of time, there's reasonings behind it and getting to know the reasons behind it and being able to grow from that and like not be too married to an agenda is important because we all have periods. Even those that make it go through less hard times, eventually going to have a lower time.
That is true. Yeah, no one seems to get away with it scot-free, do they? In the sense they've chosen something in their life where it yeah, in some aspect, maybe what people will not understand in the background, but whatever they're going through, it's difficult. With your brother's murder, what did that teach you? What do you think that? I mean, on the outside, of course, it's, you know, I'm very sorry that you even had to experience that in this lifetime, right? But from a deeper spiritual perspective, which I'm sure you've looked at, what do you think it was there to teach you?
So me and my brother are, okay, I was going to say, we are a year and a half apart. He's no longer alive. He hasn't been for like 7 years now. But it's weird to have someone that you always had a part of your life. Like we are that close in age. Me being born in May and him being born in like November. I would say he would be the first like catalyst of my perception when it comes to death and the changing of ways. Also people knowing certain things about themselves, because when I used to talk to my brother growing up, he used to always feel like he was never going to live that long. He used to always say he was going to die at a young age, and he died at 19. So it's like, sometimes you know things about yourself and your soul is just there. But I'm grateful because being who I am and my gifts and abilities, I have the ability to connect to my brother. He makes his presence known. I still get to bond with him. It's not in the physical plane. So it's very heartwarming to know that like we are not really ever alone.
Isn't that so powerful? And I feel that way as well, that, you know, when people transition, yeah, it's very painful. Of course it is, right? But then you've got to some other relationship with them in your own way. There's a different type of relationship, and people don't always see it like that. But then there's a lot of people that would agree with that as well, because they're like, I've got my relationship with my old man or my mother on my own terms right now, but they're always there. You hear that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and it also shows you how the spiritual planes work, because they don't work like we work. So my brother can be here and he can be visiting his kids. He can be here visiting them. Right. It's like, it shows you that time itself and like how we see things doesn't really matter, because energetically you could pick up on energy from a distance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. So with the content that you're putting out right now, it's a lot about the energies that we're experiencing right now. Where are we, do you think, with the timeline that we're in right now? Because there's so much going on, whether it's in America, whether it's abroad, there's a lot going on right now.
Yeah, I've been channeling about this intensely. I started doing it towards 2021. In March 2022, there was this energetic click that most of us picked up on. And I say it this way, and this could be a little bit more scarier. I know, serious energy, trigger warning type of energy. 2022 is a year of change. 2023 is a year of chaos. 2024 is going to be systematic. 2025 is when we start seeing the light. So we're in this like 4-year period where there's all this Earth and humanity's darks and shadows is coming out, and we have to be a light during this time. There's all these shiftings and heaviness, the natural disasters that are not in the same like format and cycle that they normally are. So 2025 is when we start seeing the light. I say it that way. Other people have been saying it different ways, because I get a lot of spiritual confirmations from people that actually channel or talk about things and get their own downloads. And I was literally telling people, being just serious, that you got to pay attention to everything, because there's no coincidences. I strongly believe in that. And why are people having similar human rights issues all throughout the world?
Right. Yeah.
All throughout the world.
All countries.
We're fighting. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's all these things happening that are like similar throughout the world. That only can be divine intervention, which is what I tell people when I channel. And I'm like, this is divine intervention. You need to pay attention to this. And not on just one level, because we have divine intervention on the gods, goddesses, and deities level, Galactic Federation for the Starseed, and the cosmic level, which tie together, and they've both been a part of Earth and humanity's history from the beginning of time. And then you have divine intervention on Earth itself, because the Earth is cleansing itself with the intense natural disasters that people have been losing their lives like in the thousands. And the sad thing, and I mean really sad, because I'm going to say it so casually, but it's not casual. We're in World War III energy, and we're also in many civil wars energy. So they're correlating in that negative energy. When it comes to the war, people are going to try to deny that it's there, and try to not say that we're in a war until the very last minute. And that's going to be happening. Sorry, my body confirms things naturally, energetically. So when I like twitch like that, it's just me channeling a little bit naturally. So when it comes to the war, that's going to be past 2025. So we have this like thought process and this energy of like this heaviness right now. This whole shifting, the war is a part of it, but it's not the main catalyst of everything going on. Yeah, it's a lot. And
that is a lot. So you feel energetically that if there was conflict on a global scale, as we would call World War III, which none of us like, I don't even like using that word, right? Because
it's serious.
It's serious. It's suffering. It's so many things that we shouldn't need to be doing as a collective, right? But there's unfinished things going on. So you feel that energy is more into 2025 in a sense.
So it's going to be past 2025.
Past 2025, maybe even up to 2029.
Like so what I got from that, because I got to download that the heaviness and the seriousness from the energy of the war would be around a 10-year period. So it's past that. So even though it's going on within this energy, this huge energy of Earth and humanity shifting, and like what people call, there's multiple theories, like the New Earth theory by Dolores Canning, all this other stuff. That is like that main energetic force and shift that we're going through right now in this 4-year period.
Right. Yeah. And when we talk about unrest, with human rights, I mean, you just got to look at Iran. Even Taiwan against, China, in a sense, it is a cultural clash. And other countries as well.
Yeah,
Not
Russia,
every
Ukraine,
Russia and the Ukraine, but
the United States itself, because
oh my
being
God, yeah.
American, I like Roe v. Wade, and so I try to pay attention to everything when it comes to like the news, and there's so many things going on. People, so I follow certain people, they will talk about and they break down all the amendments and all the things that are changing, everything that they're trying to pass right now. It's really ridiculous. Like there are a lot of human rights issues and control issues and suppression issues that are coming up. And it's like this repeating cycle as somebody who watches history, like loves history. It's a repeating cycle of history that never needed to be there in the first place, let alone be repeated.
Do you feel that, we talk about this time of awakening right now, but do you think there's like a third cycle of awakening and more cycles of awakening that await us? But this is the one of the sort of difficult cycles of awakening that we're in right now, in a sense?
I would say people are always going to be awakening, because not everyone's going to be awake. And there's always going to be cycles where people are pushing towards awakening. What a big push that I've been channeling about, and I mean, not just from like the Divine Council or the Galactic Federation, is the fact that the reality is Earth and humanity likes to repeat cycles. So if we're always repeating cycles and we don't learn our lessons, there's always going to be something that we have to awaken to and something we have to learn. But currently there's this really big push of the Magick reawakening, the magic itself, people tapping back into it and connecting to it, and what we deem to be myths proving that they exist, like the gods, goddesses, and deities, because it makes no sense that we're in a place where there's so many different gods, goddesses, and deities culturally from way back in the day where they weren't able to connect, but we call them myths now because technically they never went anywhere. And if you know anything about gods, goddesses, and deities, when their acknowledgement and people working with them and like doing that helps build their magic and that connectivity. And it also helps us personally tap in and connect to our magic too. So it's bothly like a negative coin both ways that intentionally happen there. And they're like, no, we're going to be pushing and connecting. And a lot of us are connected genetically, like ancestrally and from past lives.
And that's a big part of your work as well. Absolutely. I believe there's 3 books that you're thinking of doing. One book is going to be based. Well, you're actually writing 2 of them. Are you right now? Is there 2 that you're doing?
I am writing them right now. So
yes. And the third one is based on Magick and forgotten history and the things that you're just talking about there. Sorry, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you've not actually released it yet.
Well, no. So I'm in this weird period where I'm focusing on transitioning to solely focusing on my on spirituality. And when you're in this weird transition periods where there's a lot of unknowns, but you just got to have faith in getting those intuitive nudges, it's like this huge, basically confirmation. Like I will be getting my PhD, writing books, and then focusing on that aspect. And my spiritual team told me intentionally to correlate that with the weird energy in the world, because we're going through this period of like 3 to 4 years of really intensity. So if I'm in this period of still channeling, communicating certain things, but we are all waking up and pushing after the 2025 period, it makes the most sense energetically for me to align with that. And the reasoning behind, not going too much into details about my books, but I'm going to tell you what they're about, is because 1, people bite things. It's always protection. You're creative. You know how people are. So, and I mean that in the most honest and upfront way. So my 3 books, one's going to be about my perception on deaths and like ancestral connection that many of us have lost, because a lot of people culturally honor their ancestors and they see it as just a transitional period to the other side. And since I started my spiritual journey by connecting with my ancestors, I think it's important just to have that perception. That's like more of a short, feel-good type of book, not too long, something that you possibly can read to kids and let them know that when people lose their lives, transitional periods. I'll give an example of something, a perspective or a really big key point in the book. We only think about who we know them as and the connectivity we have to them. But your aunt, let's say your grandparents, let's focus on that. They had a life before you. They have parents, they have siblings, they have friends and stuff. And if they're older, they have probably lost a lot of those people. So they're leaving you on this physical plane, but they're connecting to their other family members on the spiritual plane, on the ancestral plane, and they're having a full circle moment, but you're only seeing it from your perspective. So it's like a perception on death.
That's beautiful.
And I love that. Yeah. Because people tend to just think about themselves. And I'm like, no, there's so much more.
The unknown family on the other side. Yeah.
For my second book, it's going to be a book about Black witches and like the magic. And I want it to be a trilogy. So I have like 3 titles and basically kind of based off of my life, because being raised Christian and having gifts and abilities and kind of been developing my gifts on my own journey. It's just like a feel good of why, because my magic and my gifts and abilities are ancestrally tied. And I just want to make a book about that to make me feel good, or people that may have similar experiences. So it's kind of like
That's going to help a lot of people.
My life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yep. I get that.
And then my third book, this is going to be probably the book I released third. And it's because my ideals are still shaping around this, because we have voids in history. We have history that's intentionally taken out and forgotten that many of us are reawakening to. So we have so much knowledge and powers within us and that we have access to. So let's say you go through the Akashic records. I'm a seer. So I can like tap in inwardly into my energy and the world's energy. And I lead people through like channel guided meditations and stuff to get in contact with different aspects of themselves. So this is just, I guess, an introduction. It's going to be a series, like an introduction book under the same umbrella of like, this is what you should be paying attention to and know. And it's still developing, because there's so much when it comes to forgotten history and magic and connectivity that it can be overwhelming. And I'm trying to figure out and pinpoint what I want to focus on first. But it's probably going to be like, yeah, gods, goddesses, and deities are not myth for the most part. And you should be realizing that and connecting more, because that connectivity is everything for you. And if you have someone you're tied to culturally, you connecting to them. And since most of them are connected to magic, if you think about it, I'll use Greek, because Greek gods are like really well-known Greek mythology. You think of like Hecate, the Greek goddess. She's literally a goddess of witchcraft, magic. She's tied to like a necromancy, the moon, the triple-headed goddess type of stuff. So if you are connected to Hecate and she's telling you about magic, and she's one of the goddesses many witches like work with, she's a goddess of magic, like literally. You also have like pagan gods, like Norse gods, and people connecting to them. We hear so much about their mythology and lore. Like you think of Thor and Loki, and you have Zeus and all these things that are really prominent factors still, because their myths never really went anywhere, but they're deemed to be myths instead of real physical beings. And that disconnect to me, I don't like, which is one of the reasons why I'm going to get my PhD and point out like how rude it is to deem someone a myth because you didn't think they were real. And that ties back to colonization. Yeah.
This is fascinating. Yeah, because again, I guess you'll choose when you do your PhD what you could actually focus on, in a sense, right? And I'm sure it's going to be something in this area, and you never know which one of these books may become the next reality when you do start that PhD, or where that journey's going to take you.
I would say most definitely a big part of that would be the disconnect from the gods, goddesses, and deities. So a big push, because when you get a PhD, you want to be able to research things and talk about things. And I consider myself like a mystic historian mystic, right? So the connection of God, goddesses, and deities and colonization would be the basic pinpoint. And I want to focus on ancient history and ancient civilizations, because they did have different gods, goddesses, and deities when it comes to magic and spiritual practices. And colonization just happens to tie into it really, really vaguely. And there's a lot of things I could research. So that is basically the umbrella of what I will be tying into. And then my practical, that's the practical to my spiritual, and then leading on from that. It's like the foundation of what I would be focusing on.
Excellent. Now, just remind us as well, if people wanted to reach you, can they do that via social media?
Yes, you can. You can DM me on IG, and I'm actually rebuilding my website. So by the time this comes out, it's going to have a contact us form, and you can always have it's also a send email link, I think, on my IG, so you can email me. So yeah, you can most definitely reach out, or like on my YouTube channel, comment and stuff, because I read through that and I can respond. I like to be interactive as much as possible, because I like social interaction. I like, my heart's in this, my soul's in this, and I want to communicate to people in a positive way, Right,
absolutely. Okay, great. And just for the podcast, thank you for that. For the podcast, just some of your social media accounts, just name them just for the audio version.
So TikTok at Desjanee Threat, YouTube at Desjanee Threat, Intuitive Channeler and Seer, Instagram at Desjanee Threat, Twitter at Desjanee Threat. And if you type in my name, like I should be the person that pops up. I mean, there's fake accounts because that's a huge thing in spiritual communities, but like the one with the most followers is me. And on TikTok, I just surpassed 28,000. So
congratulations. Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Okay, so we'll list all those in the show more notes below as well, so you can go straight to them and you've got ways to contact yourself. Just want to mention as well, just with what you feel the energies and the predictions, I think there's a lot of power in what you're able to pick up on, and I've only time will tell, right? But that's, I guess, you're reading into the energy as it is right now. Now that can change. The change is always available to the collective in a sense, but as a collective right now, you feel that into 2025 we're looking, as you've described, for some big changes. But I just want to say to people, yeah, you can bury your head in the sand. And it really is I do think that it's about living your life purpose. So the more that you live your life purpose, in a sense, the more that's having an effect on others, and it can only be a positive thing, right? But I don't feel it's the end for mankind past 2025. But I will say this: there is a change, and I think we're all going to be, facing that consequences of some of that change. But it is not the end.
So I've been saying that too. And I think that there's people saying that humanity is going to end. I'm like, no, it's not ending. We're shifting. Earth and humanity is shifting. It's not the end. I channel a lot of high level beings, and it's not the end of Earth and humanity. It's not like a master reset. It's a shift. It's kind of like a divide, but we're going to still be here. And what I've channeled recently is the way it plays out will be based off of how Earth and humanity responds. And humans as a whole needs to come together, and we need to kind of demand change, which is why there's so many human rights issues going on. So yeah, no, we're going to still be here. No, we're not at this big push. It's just like this energetic shift and change. And you're right, going back into the overall top energy that you mentioned is like, this is a timeline. There's multiple timelines, truths, and realities. This is the one we're currently on. So if humanity decided to change its mind, it can change. But as there are beings of light, there are beings of dark. As there are beings that are here to raise Earth's vibration, there are beings that want to keep it low. So when you're a spiritual worker and you're actually doing spiritual work and you're here putting in work, you are a target to those negative forces because you're trying to raise the vibration, you're talking positively, and you're doing this. And it's a form of spiritual warfare that I currently go through and many other people do. It's extremely important. And trust me when I say those beings of dark and negative energies, negative, like wanting to keep things low, are most definitely putting in the work as much as us light workers, and possibly even more, because they're intertwined on high levels, just like some of us that are of light.
I would agree with you so much. I want to say 1,000, but that's not, yes. I've seen it. We all see it. Just look at what's going on in the world. There's so many angry people as well. And there's so much anger out there right now as well. There's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of things are crumbling, and I think they've got to. It's all part of this change. What I'm saying as well is, I'm not saying that there may not be wars in the future or the timeline we're talking about into 2025, but whatever it is, it's something that we've got to go through, and whatever that's going to be. Do we have to? There's so many arseholes that are switched off, but they've come here to be switched off.
So the answer to that would be yes, and most people may not like that answer, but I'm going to give you examples to why. When it comes to history, because I'm a history lover, everything that happens was changed. And I'll use the United States as an example because I'm American. When we come to civil rights issues, human rights issues, there's always this huge push and a fight to demand our rights. And it doesn't come easy. And that's basically the repeating history that's happening now. Like when it comes to affordability, natural resources. And I channel a lot. Gaia, the earth itself, nature, because nature is sacred in many practices. Most people who are light workers feel the same. you have this push from Gaia and many different beings, like the Divine Council, gods, goddesses, and deities, Galactic Federation, archangels, everything. And the fact of the truth of it is we should sustain and be able to live off of natural resources that are naturally provided for us. And there's this huge push, and I'm not the only person who has been channeling about this or saying things about this, that the fact that we don't is an issue in itself. Because there's control, colonization happened. People came in and added value to things when you used to be able to come somewhere, build a house, and now that house has value. Let's go into indigenous populations. So indigenous populations were forced out of their places, and now they may not have the land that they used to have. But when you come to indigenous populations and practices, they are really advocates of nature, and they are like fighting against the Clean Water Act and all these things, trying to make you not dig into places that are sacred. So it's like natural resources are a thing. We need to pay attention to that because we can sustain off of natural resources. You don't have to be in debt. People don't have to be working all these jobs and suffering and hating what they're doing because they're just working to be able to pay bills, because the way the system was set up is to keep us suppressed and oppressed and make other people rich. And now, being a descendant of slavery, we don't have reparations. And most of us built generational wealth that people are living upon now. It's so many things historically that's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole heap of absolutely. Yeah, there's a whole heap of stuff. Yeah, you're so well studied in this. I can tell that from a mile away. Do you know what I mean? It's and you've got so many good things to say, and I really can't do it justice in this short interview, right? But absolutely. But like you say, all these things are coming to the surface and more, and they're going to come to the surface, no matter what. And as you say, maybe. I think the soul knows what it's getting involved in when it comes down here, right? It's not like, oh my God, down that tube and, I didn't sign up for this. Well, you did. You knew what you were getting involved in.
Yeah. Soul purpose, soul contract wise. And I don't think that it's not for everyone. Like for me, I have an alpha personality and I have no problem channeling and speaking about things. But at the same time, you have spiritual warfare and you go through things because I'm developing and growing and coming into myself still. I don't ever try to act like I'm a all-knowing person, because even if I have a lot of knowledge, which I do, I'm still growing and figuring things out. And that's the beauty of a life and journey, And
hats off to you for saying that.
Thanks. Yeah, it's like I literally take the perspective when it comes to me being a spiritual influencer of like being honest and vulnerable, because I used to close off my emotions. And being a divine feminine, it's like I try to really embody that because my heart's in it, my soul's in it, and I still have like divine masculine traits that I utilize too. And I'm like, this is how I feel. This is what I'm going through. This is a collective energy. And then I like build upon longer readings typically on my YouTube channel about that and like try to focus on that. Yeah, it makes me happy. It's like, I like the idea of people knowing that they're not only going through something by themselves. And when you come to collective energy, which a lot of channelers pick up on, it's important for us to push those notes and like, oh yeah, you're not the only one. It's like the philosophy, because I've been on my spiritual journey solely by myself, except for my spiritual team. And I like the idea of telling people, you're not the only one. Let me confirm these things for you and help you realize that.
You told me that when we had our first discussion just a few days ago. I just said some of the things that I was going through, and you're like, hey, join the club in a sense. And I was like, yeah, damn, she's, when you told me your story and stuff, I was like, wow. Not just your brothers, but obviously your personal journey of where you've been just recently. I mean, it's all part of the story, but just, yeah, it's, these are difficult times for a lot of people. So I do get that. I do. So much has changed. And it's changed very quickly as well. Let's just sort of shift this as well, just into forgotten history as well. I want to touch upon that. Then I want to come back on just to the ancestry stuff as well. I think that's important, but from a different perspective. So when you look at forgotten history, well, I guess it all fits in, because I wonder what our forgotten family on the other side that we don't know, but we have met before, we will meet again, right? Mm-hmm. And that have been through the times of the past and what they learned from it, and they see what we're doing right now, what they must think.
As a channeler, I get a lot of opinions. I get a lot of truths. I get a lot of things. And for me, a personal balance is bringing that practical into the spiritual, because I'm just going to be straightforward. Being the dominant person that I am, I'm a Taurus. I want to be able to tell you channel something and then prove that it exists in that practical side, because the people that are the naysayers are going to be like, well, can you prove it? And I'm like, yeah, here. That's my philosophy. So a lot of the things I get downloaded and nudged to, I just decide to go in and find it. So when it comes to forgotten history, again, I'm a history lover. I'm a huge spiritual nerd. You think about things like the Library of Alexandria, that was intentionally burnt down. And not everything was destroyed. Atlantis, I'm an Atlantean Starseed, that myths around that. You have other places, things like that are intentionally destroyed because they held so much truth and so much weight, and they connect to magic, things they don't want you to know about now. And you just dive deeper and deeper. So when it comes to like our forgotten family and our soul family, one big thing that I channel a lot is that they understand that the intentional narrative that was pushed to us. We are under an intentional narrative. There's this thing that people are talking about, they're breaking out of the matrix. We were put in a matrix. We were put in a bubble. We were put to believe in certain things and not believe in other certain things. And all of that holds and reigns true. So it's important for us to be aware of that. Yeah. But forgotten history, there's this huge push, and something I channel a lot, especially from the Galactic Federation and from different gods, goddesses, and deities, that people are reawakening to that. So the more you tap into your magic, the more you have access to. The more you connect to different divine beings. Like I'm an Atlantean Starseed, Atlanteans are really knowledgeable. So the more you connect to like those divine beings, your ruling body, your origin, the more you connect to certain gods, goddesses, and deities, the more you'll have access to, because they're going to nudge you in the right direction. Your soul's going to nudge you in the right direction to what you're meant to put out into the world and what you're meant to know. Right. And then you get confirmations from other people. So again, I channel and focus on collective energy, and I'm very authentic. I don't like try to take anything else anyone does, because that's a huge problem in the spiritual community. So I'm saying this, and I'm talking about the 2025. Literally today, when I was scrolling through my social media on TikTok, someone was explaining the astrological energies of why the end of 2024 is significant going into 2025. I was like, confirmations, like all the time. And there's many ways to get the confirmations energetically wise.
Well, just touching on forgotten history as well, still, just the philosophies of forgotten history as well, the forgotten philosophies, right, that our ancestors would have lived by, that maybe, would have been less violence in the air, maybe. I don't know. I mean, we don't know, but maybe you pick up on some stuff like that. I don't know.
I say yes. And what I do love is that there are so many people reawakening, or there are so many people that are tied to their practices, and they're being more vocal. So people are not afraid to talk about their magic, their gifts and abilities now. They're being more open about it, compared to people having to practice in secret. You think of like the witch trials because they're afraid of their lives. I mean, it's the truth. People still see us as targets for having magic and like openly channeling and stuff, but we're at a point where we just don't care. That's like my philosophy, at least. And when you come to that, the way they connect, the way they get information, the way that they're bringing it back to the forefront is important. So there's going to be all these beautiful, divinely inspired things that people are going to be putting out. So we're going to see that in books, TV shows, movies, song lyrics, sharing things like this. They all connect in a way. So I have my way of doing things, and people have their way. So there's people with specific purposes. So there's people who have strong connections to their ancestors. So they're writing out that forgotten history and those practices and sharing it to people that are reconnecting. And I love that. It's so beautiful to me. You also have people, when it comes to the Galactic Federation and the Starseed side of that, are writing these things and sharing these things and giving you that knowledge. For me, on a wide scale, I would say, because I'm tied to both, when it comes to certain magical practices and stuff, I would want to focus on that and like letting you know that this is why it's important to connect back to the different gods, goddesses, and deities. And all that's forgotten and intentionally left out history, but also putting back that knowledge in the world is a threat to the system and the bubble we are a part of. Well, I broke out of, but many people are a part of.
Yeah, I mean, we could even mention Lemuria, because people talk about that, don't they? And they talk about the return.
Lemuria, yeah.
Yeah, the return of
Starseed.
Lemurian. Yeah, they talk about that. And maybe some of this stuff is coming up more, and especially if you're talking about you want to do books, maybe some of that book is channeled as well. Maybe there's a reason why this is coming back right now. Maybe looking at it from a different perspective is going to be beneficial in ways we don't understand.
Yeah, there's many reasons to why it's coming back right now. One, consciously, a lot of us are aware and are willing to. It's no force. We have free will. So you like give an example of myself. When you channel certain things and you get all these negative things people say, because there's a lot of negative that comes with it. Even channeling in the spiritual community,
Of
not
course,
everyone
I get that.
understands it.
It's on the fringe. I get that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when you have all these things happening and you have like a target on your back, it's not easy to do so. You have to have a soul that's willing to be that person in the forefront, that person that gets called crazy, a fear monger. Because this happened to me back in March when I was channeling about the natural disasters and stuff that have been playing out throughout summer. It's like you have to like have tough skin and you have to work through things because you're still human. It's not easy. And I think that collectively we have a lot of souls that are willing to do that spiritual work and to be that person in the forefront and having to put on that weight because it's a lot of weight on you.
Absolutely. It's so true. I always think about that, right? You know, public channelers. I'm like, yeah, you know, okay, it's a fringe of spirituality, it's a fringe of the community, yet, you know, where does some of this deeper lost, shall I say, not missed, but lost knowledge come from, in the sense of like, you know, when you listen to a channeler, most times they're not really after your money. It's not like that, and they're not trying to direct you in any direction. Yeah, I know things have to be charged for sometimes, and they can do what they want. They're entitled to that. But the main core of a lot of the message is a better way for you to be for yourself, a better way for you to live. It's a different way of understanding that's been said in a way that's just, you know, resonates with people had it not been said that way. Okay, it came from channeling, but I mean, isn't it worth a look at for some people? And I think some people are thinking that it is.
So I agree 100% on what you just said. So for me, there's a lot of pushback when it comes to being a channeler. And since I channel a lot of different things, there's things that people don't like. As a representative of the Divine Council, people don't even understand that. And a big thing that they have been telling me is that people don't really understand the distinctive energies of different gods, goddesses, and deities. When you channel, you pick up on different energies. So if someone doesn't understand that, or they haven't got to that point because there's this disconnect spiritually from the practice, it's like questionable. And it's the same thing when it comes to spiritual practices as a whole, because most things, if you're going through a spiritual journey, you're reading through different things, people are inspired in different ways. So they may not have channeled that, but they were divinely inspired in a way. And they could have channeled it not in the channel state. Like they just had the nudge to like know these things and do research upon that. And I say nowadays, it's like such a big push to like prove it, which is why the practical to my spiritual is important to me. And so compared to the things that was we build upon and we take as face value now, it's weird. It's like weird to explain.
Yeah, and I guess with the realms that you're walking in as well, it's that mix between, you know, myth, legend, or actual history. But
yeah, and tied to so many practices.
Right.
So it can be offensive to some people. And then I'm like, just communicate. Because for me, I'm verifiable. And that sounds really like cocky, but to me, it's like huge because I don't sell people anything. So I get these messages and I do these collective energies that certain gods, goddesses, and deities want me to say. Or there's this push of collective energy from the Divine Council of things you need to pay attention to. So to me, I'm like, well, just ask, because you can communicate. They will get back to you and let you know what's going on. Or it's like, oh, you're not this. I'm like, just take the due diligence, because I always tell people, for me, when I like literally say this all the time, you don't have to take my word for it. Use your discernment, utilize your own gifts and intuition, and then communicate to your spiritual team for confirmations. Because I don't have time to try to fake or scam anybody. I take my purpose seriously, and it puts me in as a target and a threat to many things that for just existing, you know?
I love your energy, and I think you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and hats off to you to be so brave to do it. It takes a brave soul to do it. So, you know, you're leading the way a little bit.
Thanks. I like the idea of being a leader. It's not easy. I had to become more comfortable with it. You're
doing this, you're doing this show.
So I think that as a whole, just becoming comfortable with being a leader. So I've never been not like someone who has a problem speaking, but I'm purposeful and I know I'm aligned. And it comes with a lot of like spiritual warfare and battles and people that test you. So I had to work through certain things, and I still work through certain comfortabilities. Like it's November when we're recording this. Not October. In March and April, I had to work through this energy of people calling me a fearmonger because I'm a seer. And I was telling people about the natural disasters that we've been seeing play out. Like throughout the summer, like literally they played out throughout that time. And other people were picking up on these things and they weren't saying it. Most people weren't saying it. But afterwards, or as they were happening, they were talking about it. And I was like, well, I've been telling y'all about this. And I was like, and I literally was channeling that in summer 2022 is when you're going to see the peak of it. And this is when people are going to pay attention and they're going to be able to not downplay it. And literally summer 2022 is when we saw a lot of that. And it's like when you're the leader, the person talking about it when other people aren't as comfortable. And I'm not saying that there's no one else was. I'm saying like majority wasn't. It comes with like a lot of things because, yeah, it's a lot.
But
it's
thank God you yourself and you just go past that and you just keep doing what you think is the right thing to do. And I think you should be talking the way you talk because, it's like that film, Don't Look Up, isn't it? It's the same thing, within our community, we always want it to be positive and manifesting our reality, everything's great. Well, sometimes we've got our heads buried in the sand.
It's interesting you say that. For me, as a light worker, I have 2 philosophies, and they are like love, light, and boundaries, because the boundaries are important to me. Something I had to develop as someone who has like energy and toxicity growing up. And then the other side of that is like the light, shadow, and dark. And people don't want you to embrace your shadow or your dark, but to encompass all of you and all aspects of you, you have to get to know those sides of you. And that's where my philosophy is my philosophy. I try to talk and be very straightforward, like serious energy. I'm not going to just try to paint a picture. If you're someone actually doing spiritual work, you know that there's like not always positive or light things. Really and like I said earlier, Earth and humanity's dark and shadows are coming out where we have to be a light. So we have to embrace those things right now as we're in this weirdly intense period of time. But there's people who don't want to acknowledge that. People don't want to say that. And I'm like, no, but in the long run, it's going to be what's best for us. But right now, it's what we have to deal with.
Well,
and that wording itself makes people mad.
What do you think Hitler was working with? Yes, I'm sure he came down here knowing that he was going to take on a persona of that role. But you mix a little bit of lovely, if you want to call it negative energy, evil, whatever this energy is really. You got a great concoction there then of some of the worst things that mankind's capable of, right? And I think if we even look at Vladimir Putin, just to be doing what he's doing, sleeping at night when all those people per day are killed and have been killed, mass graves, the whole shebang. I mean, it's just awful, right? And if there's not dark energy working with that person, I give up. Right.
So I agree with you. And it just it goes back to history. Historically, because history ties into everything, literally. And I'm just like, historically, there had to be someone who was uncomfortable like me to make a difference. And you have to be able to see that people like Hitler, even though there's people who see him as a light, but there's so many people that saw him as a dark and like a negative force because he was taking lives. And all these things is like perception and paying attention to these things. But if someone never wanted to talk about that negative side of things, then no one would have known. Like, that's how I think.
Well, let's just look at that with Hitler then. I mean, okay, so, or someone that's working with dark energy. Because dark energy could be, look at the school shootings that have taken place recently. It can come in a number of forms. I mean, the Parkland shootings. You look at the guy that's been charged. Well, he's been sent down now. Whether he'll live or not, that's up to the universe. But with his life being taken in prison, but me and you would say that when we cross over, and these are just human words for it, right? We go back home. That we get to see our other family, which I'm sure all these people that would you see as so dark on this level would be going back to as well. There's probably a life review. Probably we see this experience from a different perspective, right?
I do, yes.
Yep. So tell me, and maybe you can include something personal as well. It's up to you. But the journey of death is when we cross over, as far as you understand it right now, in respects to some of the things I mentioned there.
It depends on personally your belief system. So if you're somebody who believes in a certain religion or culture and you have a strong foundation in that, that would be mainly your primarily deciding body. And you do have karma. You have things you have to weigh out on and things that you would have to like live up to and like decide upon. So let's say you're a dark person like Hitler and you did all these effed up things. You have to answer for that in death. And that adds to karma. And I believe in reincarnation as a seer and someone who's connected to their past lives, and past lives are true. But there's things you do have to work on in the in between. And sometimes people are forced to be in the in between for a period of time as they work on things and are doing some parts. So death itself depends on the culture, the practice, and what you have done. Sometimes people get reincarnated right away. There's sometimes people who don't get reincarnated for a period of time because it's somebody else's guide. It's just like, it just varies. There's so many things that come with death and the perception, but to me, there's an ancestral plane. It's a plane where most of the ancestors resides, and it's kind of sectioned off, and people can go in between. And it's a cycle, it's a transition, it's a period, it's another dimension. So depending on who you are, if you're a lower vibrational, or if you want, I'll say negative, bad omen, you don't get to be with the better people. Something that people say when they connect to their ancestors is highest and best good. So if you're not an ancestor for the highest and best good, you're more on the lower totem in the pole. You may be in a different place. It's just like death is a transition period, and there's someone you have to answer to. I personally haven't died, so I haven't had that experience. Well, not this incarnation, at least. So it's just like, it just depends and varies. But one thing I do know is your soul is going to have to answer for the things you've done. And that could add into karmic debt. And that can add into maybe you having to be here a few more times in incarnations.
Do you think there's positive karmic debt?
Yes, 100%. It's not always bad.
Right.
So I think that a lot of people who do a lot of positive things either clear out their karmic debt from past lives in their family, because that's a huge thing people do. It's like clear out generational trauma, debts, and things. And they also help other people do it. And those are all positive things and movements. And that's how you change cycles and shift. And that's the best work I feel like a lot of people should be doing and are doing too. So people think of the negative side. I'm like, no, you're clearing out bad karmic debt and implementing positive things. And that helps your lineage come through and bring things to fruition and remove some of the blockages, and a lot of power in doing positive things.
Yeah, wouldn't it be cool, like, if whatever positive thing you're doing down here that you enjoy doing as well, but from the other side, it's helped someone from the other side in a sense, and they've gifted you their positive karma. You'll never know, I suppose, until you've crossed over. But not that whatever gifted you the positive karma even means, right? I'm just saying, but I wonder if it's transferable, right?
So it's amazing that you say that, because I didn't think about this. But in certain cultures and practices, they say that when you're the person clearing out the debt, it goes a few generations down and a few generations back. So you're helping your people in your lineage. I don't remember how many, so I'm just going to say a few. But if someone who's watching this wants to comment and say it, it's a thing in cultural practices. They say you're clearing out for the future and like 2 or 3 possibly back. So it's not just you helping yourself.
What if that karmic positivity, that karmic reward that you got was actually from another lineage of a different family that wasn't quite connected to your lineage, but because whatever you've done, you've helped them. Maybe it works in all sorts of ways that we don't understand, right? I'm just saying, what if, right? Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe someone will write a book, or they really decide that is their thing, and that's what they decide to share upon us. And I would think that'd be amazing.
Yeah, just a thought, and I bet when you look back from the other side, and maybe that other side is so thin, it's just right here, but we just can't see it, right? Whatever, we're supposed to be here now. Being present is so important, but we must look back at this experience as being almost like the ultimate theme park. Yet when we're living it, it doesn't feel like that. But looking back, maybe the ups, the downs.
Yes. So I'm connected to past lives, and I have the ability to check in and communicate to mine. And in that realm, it's interesting to see what they experience, and then the things that they will give me advice upon as I am here now. So I would say time is linear because you can connect to different parts in space. Time is like so vast and people have so many definitions of it. It's not like just one thing happening at a time. Same thing with multiple dimensions and realities. So in that perception, I think that we tend to focus so much on the here and now or things that happen in this incarnation, but we can learn a lot from things that have happened in the past to us and also our higher selves or our future selves that can give us information and nudges. So it's weird how gifts and abilities work. Yeah.
In your connection right now, obviously you're very much into different philosophies, different, histories. Hell's people's belief on hell in some respects. What's your take on hell with what you're connected with?
You know what? It's a very interesting topic you just asked me about. I channel a lot of different gods of death. So Hades and Anubis, which is like the Greek god, and we have the Egyptian god. We have other gods that are tied to like death too, like Apunj and like Mayan or Aztec. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's just a place. So as someone who believes in like the dark side of things and the shadow side of things and then integrating and understanding all aspects of yourself. And there's people like that are shadow walkers that walk more in the dark and still be a light. It's like the underworld or different side of you is just a transition period. I think that type of stuff more so hinders and is more negative and forces towards the people that are do more negative things, bad things. And darkness doesn't mean bad because darkness is needed. It's an aspect because people correlate darkness with being bad or negative, but it's not true. That's like our black and white perception things.
I always say there's light in the dark. Sorry to interrupt there.
Yeah, exactly. But when it comes to like death and the other side, like the underworld and things, it's in a dimension that exists. If you go into like mythologies and lores, like Hades and stuff, how they say they drag you down there, it's more so the negative things happen to people that are bad or negative. So if your soul's in a good place, it's not really something you have to worry about too much. It's a perception. Like
it's a perception. Do you think we create that perception of reality?
So I actually do think that what you believe in is what you go to and go towards. So that's why I said it's a really big thing when it comes to your belief system when you die. So if you believe that there's like, you're going to reincarnated, more than likely you'll get reincarnated. You believe in the Greek gods, well, then if you pass away, Hades would be the one that you would have to deal with. You're Egyptian, Kemetic, Nubian, it would be Anubis, and Mott Feather of Truth. There's all type of stuff that ties into that culturally. And there's people who just believe that you're going to be reincarnated or become an ancestor and all these things. And the thing about that is there's proof if you listen to people's stories about how their belief system actually works. So. Definitely
in the near-death experiences, because they're all a little bit different, and it's dependent on their perception of their version of reality, and and their religious background as well. It's so true. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, one old age question, I suppose, is the purpose of life for yourself right now at the age that you're at. What do you and the sort of experiences that you've gone through and your connection that you've got, what is, because I think there's a side of you right now that's been tuning in a little bit on and off all throughout this interview, I feel. The purpose of life, what is that for you right now?
So as someone who channels, I naturally channel. So you're right, I have been tuning in and out throughout the video. It's just that that's how I naturally intuitively read. I get downloads. I just haven't been in the channeled state. I can channel both ways. And I would say life is a journey. And that's like the most cliche answer, but the purpose of life is to journey through life. And it's because we all have different purposes and things that we're meant to do. And your journey will be different than most people's journey. And you have certain things you're trying to reach. And becoming more enlightened, becoming more knowledgeable, coming into yourself. And it all comes with different aspects, depending on what you have to go through. And many of us go through hard things. Some people just flow. Like people, I would say, growing up, I always thought to myself, why am I here? I felt like I have a major purpose and I had no idea. And I was like, am I going to reach it? Am I meant to do certain things or have certain aspects of myself really? And that's one of the things that people think about and overthink about and overanalyze about, and they try to figure out. And reality is my journey of life led me here and to being who I am and understanding who I am. And hopefully you'll get there. But that requires you aligning with your truths. And so many times and so often people get shaped by other people. So when you decide to go on a journey inwardly and you heal and you a spiritual journey or you awaken in some way, shape, or form, right? That's when you have to find your foundation and your truths. And that's when you start journeying into yourself and realizing who you are. But the reality, again, is that people shape you. They force you to realize certain things and they make you think a certain way. And then you realize, oh, this wasn't really my belief system. This is something I was taught. And you rebuild your foundation based off of the things you believe. Me being raised Christian, being solely spiritual now, believing there's truths in most religions. Like even growing up, I always felt that way as someone who liked mythology, but I was always forced upon this is only one God, all these other things. And I've like always questioned it. But as I came into myself, I like know for a fact that's the truth. And it's beautiful because not everyone's the same.
No, I mean, I'm very spiritual, but if I've got a partner that's Christian and she wants to go to mass, I'm very happy to go with her. Do you know what I mean? And being that energy.
I think that respect is important because people don't respect people's boundaries or people don't respect people's differences and they try to force you or try to change you. And if I'm dating someone who has a different spiritual belief system, you respect me, I respect you. And having that beauty is there. But that's where the issue comes out historically because people don't want you to be you. They want you to be them.
Right, yeah. But I know you can get those, you can find that balance with someone, with the right person, you can, most definitely. Thank you for that. What is then the sweet spot in life, do you think? What is it all for us where we can all find that sweet spot?
My honest answer is when you come to those key moments in your life, it's when you have those key awakening moments, those key aha moments, those key moments that give you clarity for you and who you are. And then you also have those moments when you have pivotal milestones and successes. And that's the biggest things. So I would say for me, realizing I'm a representative of the Divine Council, which was huge. And I'm still coming to grasp with that and realizing all these different things because it's a lot that comes with it. There's a lot of information that I'm still discovering. Being an Atlantean Starseed, growing my following on my social media, reaching more people. Future milestones for me would be like getting my PhD, getting accepted into the program first. Having the books, the TV shows and movies, the more I'm aligned, the more things that I feel like I'm meant to do. And as you reawaken, because I say this to people, and I do mean this, we reawaken and we come into ourselves in different aspects and times in our lives. So let's say I get older and I'm like in my 60s and I decide that I really want to focus on teaching. Then you decide to become a spiritual teacher and have all this knowledge. People go through that and they transition and change careers. Like for my original master's, it's in higher education, and my BS is in business and a minor in nonprofits. So all these things kind of led me to different pivotal milestones and understanding. So, it's what you feel like is good for you. Everyone defines it differently. Some people it's like starting a family. Some people it's getting married. It just varies depending on what's true to you and your core and what's important to you and your foundation.
Yep. And that's at the present moment when it's happening as well, because everything's always in change, that's for sure. That marriage could lead to a divorce, unfortunately, but it's not unfortunate because that's what you're supposed to have come together to do and, to experience and everything else. So there's no wrong or right. I'm just saying how it changes, right? How it can...
It does change. You're right, because people get divorced. People go through hardships. It's like not always highs. Yeah.
But there is learning in the lows, most definitely. Now, just getting into the magic a little bit, I can't really touch on it too much because I know that we're sort of quite a bit into this interview right now, time-wise. But let's just look at the magic from just raising your vibration, right? We could all do with a bit of that sometimes. And I know you've touched upon this in some of your channels as well. Daydreaming and imagination. How important is that in the work you do, and how important is that for all of us in the reality that we want to create?
I say it's extremely important for various reasons. Number one, when you daydream and you're envisioning things, quite often that could be divine inspiration and you're seeing your soul tell you certain aspects of yourself. And your imagination is how you believe that something is possible. So you can be shaped into certain things. And you are like in this whole different realm of all is possible. That's good energy. That's high vibrational energy that you think it's able to accomplish, you know? It's like typically when you're daydreaming, you're imagining things. People aren't telling you this is not possible because people do that. Also, I strongly believe that when it comes to daydreams and imagination, those are things your soul may be telling you should try. And it ties into your inner child. And when you think childlike wonder in your inner child, we typically believe all is possible. We're not shaped by it or negative experiences as much. And we just have this energy of, I want to do this, I want to try that. And that's really good energy to have, especially when you believe all is possible as a child. It's good for manifestation and manifesting as a whole.
So maybe it's important to awaken your inner child as you,
inner child work is extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think that most people that create are imaginative and they do daydream about certain things, and that helps them create. It's like, oh, this seems like it's amazing, especially if you like fantasy type of stuff. That's somebody's imagination that they decide to just work upon it and build it out. And that's important.
Yeah, so true, so true. And divine timing as well, because if we're talking about raising your vibration, I think there's a divine timing in everything, isn't there? You know, we want it now, don't we? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I like divine timing and I dislike it more. Now, I'm just being honest. So I understand why divine timing is a thing. With that being said, when you're going through a lot of different things and hardships and cycles, and it hurts a lot. I mean, depending on what cycle you are in.
Just won't stop sometimes, will it?
Yeah, you feel like that. I most definitely get it. But at the same time, you got to understand why there's divine timing. Like for me, perception-wise, I see things and I get it. Like when I started my spiritual journey, if I were to realize that, oh, I'm connected to this, and that, I may have been shaped a little bit differently than who I am. We typically reawaken to things when our soul is ready. There's so much knowledge and power and things. And there's like so many life lessons I've learned just being on my journey, because not everyone's for you. Not everyone wants the best for you. And it just makes your perception change. It shapes everything. Your spiritual team typically provides things when you're ready for it or when it's the right time. And we tend to be just focused on one path. But think about divine timing. Many other paths may open up and then you be in awe of what they have for you. And that's kind of my philosophy for that, because I may be thinking this way, but our spiritual team is spiritually connected and they can see more than we can.
You know, that's the same as you've got a fixed maybe idea of what kind of, because relationships, it's a common thing for so many people. So I'm just going to just say that from a relationship perspective, you know, you've got a fixed idea of what you might perceive as what you would like in a partner, you know, looks, whatever it is, you know, personality. But actually when someone does come along and they're completely different, actually you may realize that this is like, as you were just saying there, this alternative that's come along, other doors that have opened, is actually what you really need. Exactly.
It's like we see things one way, but our spiritual team sees it a different way. And also, we can be conditioned sometimes. I'm stubborn. I'm a Taurus. I'm not going to sit here and lie. So I can be a little stubborn. And my spiritual team is like, here's a push this way. And this is what you need to be doing. Example, like I would have never thought I'd be doing this interview, and then you come through and my spiritual team confirmed for me to even do this. It's a whole different way of ballpark or something, which is amazing, and I'm grateful for it, you know?
Yeah, how about that, right? Us two meeting. And I was thinking about that when actually you started talking on the interview and I'm doing the interviewing, and subconsciously I'm like, how did this come together? Even though you know, I know you contacted me, but it's I had to say, I don't know, it's just, yeah, it's all meant to be, isn't it? Like you say, you just don't know. You wouldn't have seen this a few months ago, and here we are. And it's all for a bigger reason. Whatever's going to come from this, whatever this is about, right? And just sharing your message is wonderful as well. I think you've got so many good things to say. Sticking on that vibe then, I suppose cutting cords sometimes, you know, that's a healthy thing to, well, it's not just a healthy thing to do, but I think we have to do it sometimes. There's a lot of cord connections, isn't there, with past partners or even past friendships that aren't working, or
toxic family.
I didn't want to say that, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cord cutting is not easy. And it goes back to my philosophy as a light worker of boundaries, like love, light, and boundaries. And for me, I've had to cut a lot of friends out. I don't have that many people in my physical bubble in that realm. One, I transitioned from being Christian kind of to being spiritual, and like I've even had like cycles within that. I always subconsciously kind of left. When I was around 15, my mom gave me the option to stop going to church. And my mom's not super religious. It's my grandparents, but my grandparents are a big part of my life. And then at that moment, I was like, okay, well, I don't want to go. Then when I started college at 18, I decided I wasn't going to be religious at all. And then, I don't know, I think I was around 2016 or 2017 when I decided to start going to Bible study. So I decided to try to build a relationship with God. But again, Christianity was my foundation. That's what I was raised as. And I started to read the Bible around 2017, 2018. And then I came more into myself from 2018 when I started my spiritual journey and developing my gifts, because I bought my first tarot deck and I was like, oh, okay, let's do this. And coming into yourself is not easy. And those boundaries associated with that. And if you're someone like me, I have a lot of toxic family. That's why I said family. When it comes to friends and stuff, I have not as many toxic friends because I usually have that boundary up, but I come from toxicity. A lot of toxicity that I had to heal and work on personally and realize how that foundation is built. And I'm even at a moment in time and place where I am moving towards the end of December, hopefully before then, where I'm going to just focus on me and cut cords with everything. For various reasons. One, I think that I need to be focusing on me, my wants, my needs, what I'm going towards, the alignment of my purpose. And let's be honest, I have a serious purpose that makes me a threat, because a lot of people that are telling things and saying things I say either get killed, and this is, I'm sorry to get so serious, get put in jail, and they get silenced. Basically, people get silenced. When you're woke and you're saying things and you're channeling things, I'm openly magical, saying all these things that we need to be paying attention to. That's a serious threat. And I rather just have the life start on myself. And honestly, the fact that my family's toxic doesn't make it a hard choice. It's not easy, but it's not extremely hard.
Yeah. And I'm sure you're always open to the possibility that things can change, and people can change, and energies can change, and maybe it's just what you need right now, especially if you're going to go into PhD. But then again, I'm not living your life, so I'm not trying to.
So I agree with you, because people can change, but I was forcibly raised in the mentally, emotionally toxic situations, occasionally physically toxic situations, and not to go into too much of a trigger warning, serious thing. But SA toxic situations that I had to be around my user when I was younger. So these are all things to me now, as I've been healing, that I want to focus on myself. Yeah. So it's
I'm sorry about that, to hear that. Yeah. But that makes more sense. Okay. Yeah, understood. So a lot of forgiveness there. And I'm sure you see it from a different perspective as well. But even if you do, it's still goddamn hard.
Yeah. So I don't wish harm upon anyone. And I've done a lot of healing work, and I've done a lot of things that I need to work on. But it's the me doing it. It's not them doing it. So it's like, focus on yourself for a minute. It's needed.
No, I think that's good, absolutely good advice. And yeah, I appreciate you just sharing that. You didn't have to, but I appreciate that. So, and for you being so vulnerable as well. So just sticking on that Magick vibe a little bit, and maybe your work, your book wouldn't include some of this stuff, but I know your work does in a way. But it's important to a lot of people, money, success, and abundance. What's your take on when it comes to the magic of money, success, and abundance for people?
So many cultures and practices have they have like money rituals and spells. And I've seen people make it work. So I think it's possible. To me, to the most part, I don't focus too much on that. But I know that it works. There are people that make it work, people who do these like song affirmations and mantras and create them, and people really get money from it. And there's like these abundance rituals when people like blow cinnamon in their house in the beginning of the month. And all these different things that people do and utilize. I don't typically use them. And the reasoning behind that is my goal is long-term success and abundance. And I'm not saying that may not lead to that, but I want to build generational wealth. And then with my wealth, I plan to help other people build their wealth and break a lot of cycles and build a foundation in their authenticity in many different aspects, because I like a lot of different things. I am someone who likes like history. I care about different populations. And I feel like instead of me trying to create a foundation, I would have a general foundation where I help other people based off of their interests and build upon that. And, you know, that's the best way I can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one thing as well, when you talk about, you know, raising your vibration or, you know, coming from that better, trying to be that best version of yourself and the magic and everything else, it is also maybe basic stuff like, you know, removing addictions and substance abuse for people, which is easy to say, but it definitely is part of the process.
I agree. And those are things that people battle with. And that's the personal healing and the understanding the root and counseling, spiritual counseling, real life counseling. There's a lot of factors that go into that. And that's just part of the healing journey and understanding yourself. And those are most definitely shadow and dark aspects that people must get to know, that people don't want to acknowledge because they're worried about what other people have to say. But I'm like, you're going through it. Forget what other people have to say. And there's always power in your story because you're not the only person who does or had to battle with substance abuse or alcoholism or going through this. And that's what people are like, people are like, oh, I don't want to share it. It's not easy. I personally haven't had to, but I was raised around a lot of people in my family who has. And it's important for you to share those type of things because you should never be in a place where you're afraid of your story or ashamed of your story. And people around you shouldn't be making you feel that way. That's my opinion. As someone who is a survivor of SA as a child, I used to feel that way because every time you talked about it, people's faces would change and the perception would change. And now I'm at a point where I share my story because it's a part of my story that I had to deal with when it comes to my healing. And it's a part of you. And it's the most powerful thing you can do is encompass all of you when it comes to your stories. It goes back to the light, shadow, and dark.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that could be done in a private setting. You know, it doesn't, I mean, you know, you've been very public about it, but just for others that may be going through that, then yeah, just to go see someone or just to know that you can, but by being authentic and by you know, by just talking about it, yeah, the healing can start. Yeah.
So you don't have to be like me. So when I started my healing journey, the main thing was my essays. It affected my emotions really bad as a divine feminine. I didn't even realize I was one. I didn't speak about it. It's 2022 until like December 2020 is when I decided to be more open about it. So that was like 20-year period of my life where I was very silent. I was raised on that don't talk or tell about it philosophy. And the reality is you never have to actually speak about it. You never have to speak about it to anybody but yourself, but you have to be in a level of comfortability where you're able to reflect on it and heal past it. You don't have to share your story like me, but it's a part of your story that you need to integrate for your own well-being.
Thank you for that. Absolutely. Okay. We're almost at the end here as well, because I know you've graciously gave us an extra half hour as well for this interview, because I wasn't too sure it was going to go, because this is your first interview. I should let people know that at the beginning. You've done so amazing for your first interview, right? It's just been so easy, right? And I was panicking a little bit because, you know, whenever I do a first interview with someone that's not done many interviews, it's always like, you know, you want to give them a good interview, but it's always, you don't know their story so much. I mean, they know their story, but I went with it, try to put the stress to one side, right? And it's turned out beautifully as well. What would be if you were just to tune in as well, what would be a message that's maybe a bit of a lasting message for the audience as well? If there's any sort of like, you know, short message you want to give, or is there anything that you want to add to what we've said?
Michael, you have to pay attention to the foundations being built. Currently, Earth and humanity is shifting. Currently, you're finding your foundation within yourself. So all these foundations are being rebuilt, reconstructed, and there's so many things going on. Become comfortable within yourself, allowing you to be comfortable within the world. There's so many things that are going on. There's so many things that are battling. It's important for you to have comfortability within yourself and be strong within yourself, for that you can move towards the foundation that you need to be a part of. So, okay, that was Archangel Michael. I have Loki, but Loki's always a very serious and intense person to channel, like the god. So I don't know if you would even want to play that because they have no filter. I'm not going to lie to you.
Bring Loki on, come on. It's fine. Thank you.
Loki, you're in chaotic energy, and you have to thrive in the chaos. A message that I've been pushing to my patrons, chaotic witches, and to Desjanée. If you don't thrive in the chaos and the collapsing of society and so many things when it comes to your human rights, you'll be stuck and stagnant, and you will not bring change. Change is necessary. Change is essential, and you're a key piece, an essential piece to the change. So 2022 is a year of change. 2023 is a year of chaos, and I've been given a free reign. Thrive in the chaos. Allow chaos to run in your veins, and realize that the dark and the shadows within the earth and humanity coming out means that you have to be a light. And just because you're a light doesn't mean you don't see things for what they are. It's important to thrive. It's important to be aware, be prepared, and do what you must. So do what you must. Loki is always very intense when I channel them, and very straightforward. If you ever watch the shows or anything that's like the movies, you can see how their energy correlates with that. But to end with, I do have Hecate, because you kept asking me about magic, and Hecate is the goddess I really channel the most when it comes to magic.
Please, so. Yeah.
Hecate. There's this push energetically for people to connect to their magic. And as they connect with their magic and to their magic, it's important and essential for them to come into themselves. Magically, we all are connected. Energetically, we all are connected. And magic is a part of you. It's a part of you that historically people were trying to take and pull apart. So ancestrally, you're more than likely connected to your magic, connected to different gods, goddesses, and deities, connected to magic. And it's important for you to see this, to know that the magic has always been within you, and to reconnect, to re-thrive, to activate, and to be within your magical fate. There's a collective push of magic, of connecting to what people deem to be myths, and to being in your authenticity. It's important for you to allow your magic to shine, to connect to it, to understand you, and to reawaken on so many levels. You know what's interesting? Hecate is, I would say, if you're any type of witch, sage, shaman, anyone who taps into magic, Hecate is a great asset, even to baby witches, like people starting off, because she helps you and nurtures your gifts. But I think it's funny because I said she was going to be the last person I channeled, but as a Starseed, the Galactic Federation was not happy when I said that. They were like, "What are you doing?" Like, no.
I like those channels. I really do. Thank you for that. That was one that I shall watch back when I put this together. So thank you so much. And I think there's a reason that we've connected, which is sometimes it's not always obvious. Let me just say that. But there's always things ahead of us, and events that are going to happen. Do you know what I mean? Where we'll reconnect again. I just know there is. I really like what you do. So just for one last time, right? Just give the audience your details to connect with you, and I just want to say thank you.
I want to say yes to all that, but the Galactic Federation is really pushing this urge of me channeling them.
Oh, then please do.
Don't do it.
Yep.
I probably will speak light language because that always happens when I channel the Galactic Federation,
sure.
Just to let you know. Cosmically, many of you are awakening. Many of you are connecting to your Starseed galactic origins, and you're paying attention to how it connects to Earth and humanity historically. So many people are connecting the pieces, how cosmic, the Galactic Federation, what you deem to be extraterrestrial, has been a part of Earth and humanity's history. So many of you are connecting to your origins, to your missions, and you're paying attention to how we're making ourselves prominent again. The cosmic has been a part of Earth and humanity from the beginning. There's an intentional narrative that is hidden. If you're paying attention, many of your ruling bodies are telling you that there's extraterrestrial life, but it's going under the rug. So pay attention. allow yourself to reawaken and realize how the cosmos have been guiding you from the beginning of time. Okay. So yeah, so the Starseeds and the people that define themselves as Cosmic Galactic Federation. So but going back to your ending question, I'm Desjanée Threat, Intuitive Channeler and Seer, and you can connect with me on YouTube by my name, Desjanée Threat, Intuitive Channeler and Seer, but you can type in just Desjanée Threat, I pop up. On TikTok at Desjanée Threat. YouTube and TikTok are the social medias I utilize the most. Instagram at Desjanée Threat, Twitter at Desjanée Threat, and I do have a website, which is DesjaneeThreat.com. So thank you so much for taking the time to interview me, Kevin Moore. I appreciate this. It's been a great interview. It's been flowing so magically.
Desjanée Threat, I just want to say to you again, just thank you for coming on. You're awesome with what you're doing. You're a light to so many others to guide them onto their path of what they're doing as well. You're so needed right now, and you have a voice. Don't ever forget that. And I look forward to working with you in whatever way that's going to be, if it's going to be. And just thank you so much for everything.
Thank you, Kevin Moore. And I appreciate you even having this platform and this podcast called They Call Us Channelers, because it's important for us to be able to have our voice, and you're connecting the pieces and helping other people connect to people like me and so many amazing things, you know?